Israel has a rich spiritual history with three main religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all claiming that the land belongs to them, which can cause tensions at times. The Jews believe the land is their birthright, and after so many years of being occupied by others, will they be able to reclaim it and build their house of worship? What does the reclamation mean for them and the world? Watch this video to learn more about how the land of Israel is officially known as the State of Israel. It is a country located in the Middle East, bordered by Lebanon to the north, Syria to the northeast, Jordan to the east, Egypt, and to the southwest, and the Mediterranean Sea to the west. The country holds significant historical, cultural, and religious importance, particularly for Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. In the past, the area now called Israel was called and has been lived in for thousands of years, many years going back to ancient times. A lot of empires and cultures have been raised and lowered, including the Israelites' kingdoms, the Persians and the Babylonians, people from Greece and Rome. Its history began with the 12 tribes. They lived in the land of Canaan, includes what is now Israel, the Palestinian lands, and part of the surrounding areas. Then towards the 1000 BCE, the Israelite tribes united under King Saul during a time called the United Monarchy. When King David took over after him and set up as a capital Jerusalem, the first was built by King Solomon, a temple on the Temple Mount that was used as a religious building, the main place for ceremonial sacrifices, and a sign of the deal that God made with the Jews. Unfortunately, the country split up after Solomon's rule, as he only ruled for 40 years. But around 930 BCE in the north, the kingdom of Israel fell, given to the Assyrians in 722 BC, and many of its people were sent away. After that, the Babylonians took over in 586 BC. The state of Judah was in the south. The first temple was destroyed. The Babylonian departure came after, where many Jews were taken as prisoners back in Babylon. It was after the fall of the Babylonian Empire that the Persian Cyrus the Great made a law giving the Jewish exiles a chance to return, to rebuild their temple and their home country. That was the start of the second time in the temple, when the second temple was built in Jerusalem. That happened in the 1st century CE, showed up in the area, and Jesus of Nazareth was seen as the most important person, and Christians lived there and preached there. They destroyed the second one in 70 CE. Temple in the war between the Jews and the Romans. Ancient Israel's past is closely linked to, bound up with holy texts, and evidence from archaeology and the stories and events from this time have had a big impact on the Jewish culture, religion, and people's identity and history, and have had lasting effects. Although Israel was established a Jewish state in 1948 and since then has been a hub of cultural, historical, and political importance, the democratic government and a thriving economy and diverse population, technological innovations, and a strong military, its association with many Bible events and religious figures still make it often referred to as the Holy Land in Jerusalem. Its capital city is very important to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, making it one of the most holiest and sacred places here on earth. Now let's discuss the significance of Israel to these religions. Israel holds immense importance in Judaism as one of the holiest cities, as it is considered the spiritual and historical land of the Jewish people, and its importance is mentioned over hundreds and thousands of times in the Hebrew Bible, in the Tanakh, and the ancient Jewish temples, which were situated on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem on the Western Wall, also known as the Wailing Wall. It is a remembrance of the ancient wall that once surrounded the second temple that was there before it was destroyed in 70 AD. The courtyard is also located in Israel, with the Western Wall becoming a place of prayer, pilgrimage, and reflection, and a tourist attraction today. Jews internationally practice Jewish tradition and believe that the divine presence resides in Jerusalem. However, Jewish tradition also states that Jerusalem is the future site of the third temple. On the other hand, Christians do not claim to this attachment to the city that they consider Jerusalem a holy city, primarily because the association with Jesus Christ is that Jesus was crucified, buried, and resurrected, and he died for our sins. There are many other historical sites that pertain to Christianity in Israel, which include the Holy Sepulchre, which is believed to be the site where Jesus was crucified on the Mount of Olives, where Jesus is also believed to have ascended to heaven, and the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus prayed before his persecution. These are all sites of great spiritual importance. On top of that, Jerusalem is also mentioned numerous times outside of the Tanakh, including in the New Testament, and it is seen as a center where Jesus' teachings and ministry began. Also in Islam, after Mecca, Medina, Jerusalem, known as the Al-Quds, is considered one of the holiest cities, and it is taken as one of the most holiest cities on earth, where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven during the night journey of the Al-Aqsa Mosque located in the old city of Jerusalem. But this is so far from the truth, because this is something that was invented thousands of years after the first temple began. Because it is now currently assumed to be a very holy site for Islam due to Prophet Muhammad's teachings, now there is this ongoing conflict between Judaism and Islam and who it actually belongs to. But traditionally speaking, it came from the lineage of Abraham, David, Solomon, and Jesus, with them being associated with the religion of Jerusalem. The Dome of the Rock, a golden dome structure, is also an iconic symbol, and another loved site is a compound as a result of the city, which is considered a very holy land with deep historical and spiritual ties. However, Israel is undoubtedly a piece of important religious and historical history for these three faiths, as it is always a city that has witnessed ongoing religious conflicts and political tensions. It often gives us a reminder of the complex and complicated issue and the nature of religious heritage and divine inheritance from God himself. And the modern day realities that the Jews have to go through is difficulty finding a place to worship since the destruction of the first and the second temple. As they were accustomed to worshiping at temples and synagogues, the need to find a place to worship is now a proposal to build the third temple. Not only as a new temple to the first and second temples that were destroyed, but also fulfillment of prophecy, as we can see in the books of the Old Testament and the New Testament as well. But what are the problems that are holding back the new construction of the third temple? Well, in the time since the fall of the Second Temple after the attack of the Romans in 70 AD, various people of different ethnicities and heritages have migrated and covered the region, including the Temple Mount. The people of Israel cannot randomly take over the land without upsetting the issues of the land that is already in play. The region of the Temple Mount, a susceptible and contentious area due to its religious and historical significance, is central to Jerusalem, one of the busiest cities in the whole entire country of Israel. A sudden change or move to the dynamic to rebuild would cause an upset amidst the social, political, and emotional atmosphere and state of the country, as its ownership and country have been a subject of dispute between Israel and Palestine for many years. If a new temple is built, the infrastructure would not be sufficient, and considerably pressure will be added to the schools and hospitals built in the area. Aside from that area, which is filled with such archaeological sites which might get disrupted or even evacuation, and rebuilding began much to the dismay of environmental enthusiasts. They would also not be happy about the biodiversity disruption caused by the removing rare and endangered species from the area. Another setback Israel faces is due to the religious diversity that has taken over the area. Although the Jews believe the land is theirs to claim, Muslims strongly disagree with this, and this has caused violence and chaos in the past. The Muslims' revered site, the Dome, of the rock is built on the Temple Mount, and to press home their point, Jews are banned from visiting the complex for a long time. The Muslims countered the Jews' claims that any temple has been built there until Robert Hamilton, a British archaeologist, provided proof in his paper detailing his findings. He discovered that the Alaska Mosque was built on a Jewish ritual cleansing site, and he achieved his breakthrough after an earthquake shook the mosque in 1927, causing severe damage and demolishing a part of it. The archaeologist discovered a mikvah, a Jewish ritual bath used for spiritual purification. The mikvah is only fed by natural sources such as rainwater or connected to a natural body of water like a spring or a river. It must have been gathered and maintained following strict regulations to ensure ritual purity. This proves the presence of a previous temple because these baths are so significant that they are usually constructed even before the temple. Once the Jews had this proof, the Sarhadin began taking steps to begin temple services. This Jewish religious council was re-established in 2004 to revive the Jewish law and temple services to prepare for building the third temple in Jerusalem. They have already made headlines since their establishment by taking steps towards the rebuilding of the temple as a council, and they've recognized that the temple's rebuilding takes steps and have carefully begun them, as one of the steps is the cultivation of farms and forests. The Sanhedrin claimed that the plants are used in most rituals in the temple, till new farms and forests have been cultivated under close and careful supervision to recreate Israel's environmental conditions in ancient times. Although the Sanhedrin are putting efforts to create an enabling and good environment for the new temple, some people still question their authority. While others are concerned about the potential impacts on the environmental and balance of the ecosystem, still the Sanhedrin is undeterred and primarily focused on promoting and preserving Jewish law and traditions. Another preparation in place is readiness for the rebuilding of the temple is the training of the Kohanim. The Kohanim are the members of the priestly class in Jerusalem, the descendants of Aaron, the brother of Moses, and have a unique role within the Jewish community. Their primary duty is to perform the rituals and ceremonies in the temple. However, with the absence of the temple, traditionally, priestly duties cannot be performed. However, Kohanim continue to have a revered status in Jewish communities, and they may still lead certain aspects of religious ceremonies and fulfill specific roles and some traditions. With the new development, the Sanhedrin is taking steps to train a Kohanim on using the equipment of the old and new temples and altars and offering burnt offerings. Another essential preparation is the production of the red heifer. In addition to the ritual bath, the ashes of the red heifer are used in purification before entering the temple, and this possesses a problem because red heifers are now extinct, since only 9 heifers were slaughtered in the time between the first and second temples. Still, the Sanhedrin seems always to be one step ahead, as they are already devising methods to have an unblemished heifer engineered using the red Angus. A base rabbi, Haman Richmond, with a rancher and Pentecostal minister, Reverend Clyde Lott, understood the animal husbandry concept and attempt to produce a red heifer, and it is made more complex as it has specific rules for its breeding. Recently, 5 red heifers were transported to Israel. They were bred by a group of farmers and left untagged to fulfill the requirements without blemish or spot. The heifers have been transported and kept in a disclosed location in Israel. The heifers are now between 1 and 1.5 years old, but need to be up to 3 years old before they can be used. According to the ceremony in the Bible, rabbis state that the ceremony of the red heifers need to be performed on the Mount of Olives, in a place that would have looked directly into where the temple stood, precisely at the front of the place where the priests that made the ceremony can see the holy place. Concerning the timeline of this, he believes that it is very likely that the ceremony would happen somewhere in Passover of 2024, out of the possibility of Shavuot 2024. By then, the cows would be old enough. All steps seem to be in place for the rebuilding of the third temple, But the challenges the Jews are facing are beyond religious, but also political and geographical. A reasonable legal ruling has not been reached, and many believe it would take political action rather than legal for a peaceful consensus to be reached. Although Israel is a democratic country, its political system is intricate, surrounding the construction of the temple with debate and discussions. The effect on the international community is also being considered Israel's neighbor. The Arabs feel that the rebuilding of the temple threatens their sovereignty. Also, Israel might be unable to foot the bill of building the temple single-handedly and may need to rely on financial aid from donors. This might lead to a strain in tension, which they are trying to avoid and to be bound. So, how do they intend to settle this, and what is its significance? Mediators might have to step into the issue of rebuilding the temple, but many Bible scholars believe it is a prophecy fulfillment. According to Daniel's prophecy in the Bible, he received a vision from an angel that announced the coming of the Messiah. The destruction of a city and the temple and the rebuilding of the temple from the prophecies described a timeline for rebuilding the temple, and countdown would begin from issuing the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. After rebuilding the temple, the prophecy predicted the arrival of an anointed one who would later be killed and the temple destroyed. This prophecy seemed to have been fulfilled with the destruction of the second temple. A period of good living was expected before the revival of a new ruler who would form solid alliances and covenants in fulfillment of the prophecy. This is why many people believe that the new ruler would be the Antichrist, since Jesus Christ, the Messiah, already came before the destruction of the second temple. The Antichrist would be willing to support world leaders, politically and even religious leaders, to build the third temple so that they would be allowed and willing to follow his teachings according to the Bible. And the scholars' interpretation of the Antichrist's rise to power signifies the beginning of the end. The end of the days, the events leading up to the Battle of Armageddon, when the forces of the Antichrist would battle against Jesus Christ and his forces, including the angels in heaven. The concept of Armageddon is from the Bible, although some people are still determining whether this speaks of a particular location or the battle itself. The book of Revelation explains the battle as a final war between good and evil, after which the reign of Jesus Christ will be established. Israel is not backing down from the prospect of reclaiming their land. But we are gradually reaching the end of days, and the prophecy fulfillment or signs. Let us know what you think in the comments. Like this video and subscribe to this channel for more of this content.